Last week I was driving home from a gig in Utah at about 3 in the morning. I live in Colorado, but I am a musician, so I have to go where the work takes me to keep the lights on. I was coming through the La Salle Mountains when it started to rain. I slowed my pace to a crawl, and when things got bad, I thought about pulling off the road to wait out the storm. Tired as I was, I did not want to risk nodding off, only to wake up moments before smashing through a guardrail to go careening down the side of the mountain. Therefore, I put on my blinkers and coasted into the shoulder. That is when I caught movement in my headlights. About 20 yards up the road, just before a jackknife turn, I saw a woman in a long gray coat with the collar pulled up around her neck against the wind and rain. It looked like the one Bogey wore in Casablanca, classy-looking Macintosh trench coat with the big dark buttons. I was easily 50 miles from civilization, and a good 20 from even the nearest gas station. There was no way this person could have been out there for any reason, other than something was wrong. I decided it would be a rotten thing to just leave her out in the elements, so I threw my Oldsmobile into gear and closed the distance between us. I rolled down the passenger side window and greeted the stranger warmly, before offering her a ride. She only looked at me for a moment before turning her attention to the road ahead of us. She extended her arm and pointed down the road without saying a word. My eyes followed in the direction she was pointing, and I half expected to see a wreck or at least an abandoned car, something that could explain why anyone would be way out here all by themselves at damn near 3 o'clock in the morning, but the road was empty. When I looked back to ask her what she was pointing at, she was gone. A little spooked, I stepped out of my car and called out into the darkness, hoping to hear the stranger call back, but only the slap of rain against the roof of my car responded. I got back into my Cutlass and started down the road again. Against my better judgment, I succumbed to my desire to distance myself from the apparition. After about another mile or so, I caught sight of another figure in the road ahead of me. It was hard to make out at first, but when I got closer, my heart skipped a beat as I realized it was the same woman as before. I decelerated and rolled down my window again, to greet the stranger as I had before, but as soon as I spoke, she raised her arm again to point in the direction I was headed. Then she vanished before my eyes. I did not roll up the window, I just took off into the night. I was not sure what was going on, but I wanted to get as far away from whatever was happening as possible. Another couple of miles later, I saw her again. I did not stop this time. In fact, I floored it. She was not even acknowledging me anymore, she was just pointing at the road ahead of me. I blew by her and I did not see her disappear this time, but I also didn't see her in my rearview mirror when my eyes involuntarily drifted up to check the road behind me. The way ahead started to straighten out, and it seemed like I was almost clear of the mountains when I saw another figure in the road, only this one, much to my relief, was distinctly different. Whereas the stranger in the rain before was wearing a long gray Macintosh, this woman had on a blue jacket that looked more like a Carhartt. She was waving frantically at me as I approached, so I slowed down and apprehensively lowered the passenger side window. The rain had let up since it had started, but it was still coming down hard. This new stranger thanked me for stopping before explaining that her mother was having some kind of stroke or a heart attack, and she asked me to call 911. I could see her car pulled off the road about 20 or so yards behind her, so I pulled over and made the call. After a short conversation with the operator, I got out of my car and approached the woman in the blue jacket who was leaning into her passenger side door. She turned as she heard me approaching and I felt my heart leap into my throat. There, in her passenger seat, sat the woman in the long gray coat I had seen no less than 3 times previously that night. It took me a moment to compose myself before I could speak. I explained that the EMTs would be about 30 minutes, and that I was happy to wait with her if she needed me to. The woman in the blue Carhartt thanked me before returning her attention to her mother. I stood there in rain until the ambulance arrived, searching all the while for the words to tell her what I already knew, but I could not find them. Figured she did not need to hear it from a stranger anyway.